Ooh, okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's MMA Corner. I am Nate, and if you watch my show, you're in my corner. Today's episode is a post-fight show for UFC Fight Night. Frank Mir versus Antonio Silva in a heavyweight clash of the ages. The loser of this fight could have possibly get cut. So let's get started with the main card. And actually, I will save the main event for last. Typically, I start off with the main event, but this episode, I will save the main event for the last one because it was, wow, a lot of drama, excitement, shock, and awe. Okay, so the first match on the main card was Santiago Ponzinibbio. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah, versus Sean Strickland. Yeah. So this fight was it was an okay fight. It was in the welterweight division. Sean Strickland making his welterweight debut. I remember seeing this guy at middleweight in previous UFC fights, and I think he should have stayed at middleweight. I think his power, his punching power, kind of went down, and his strength maybe went down a little bit. And yeah, Santiago, he looked pretty good in this fight. This fight was pretty close in the first couple rounds, and I think the third round, Santiago really got the momentum, landed some good shots, and really just threw off Sean Strickland's game. Yeah, and Santiago went on to win this fight by unanimous decision, and that pretty much sums up that fight. Then on to the second fight on the main card in the bantamweight division. We had Frankie Science versus Yuri Alcantara, and yeah, this one was okay. I'm probably a bigger fan of Ildemar, his Yuri's brother, but Yuri, he's pretty good too. I'm also a fan of him. Yeah, Frankie Zayans, he beat my local boy Nolan Tickman in his UFC debut, and neither guy really looked to wow anyone. In that fight, Frankie Zayans got the win in that fight, and then now he moved on to a much tougher opponent in Yuri. Yuri's ranked really high in bantamweight. And wow, you know, for Frankie, I guess given the circumstances, he was a massive underdog, the biggest underdog on this main card. And it was really putting him through a grinder with this fight. And knowing that he was able to use his wrestling and submission defense, getting in the guard of Yuri a lot in this fight, I think it went to show his ground game, that he has good wrestling and good submission defense and possibly great submission skills to see in the UFC down the line. His stand-up looked okay. Yuri, yeah, I think he needs to work on his takedown defense above all, and I think if he does that, he can get back in that top 8. He was ranked number 8 in bantamweight before this fight, and I would imagine he moves down after this loss. But yeah, it was a big upset. Frankie did a good job. Uses takedowns well, set him up real well. That's a stacked division in bantamweight, so Frankie has a long road ahead of him, but we'll see down the line where he goes. But for now, he won this fight by unanimous decision. Then, also on the main card, we had a lightweight bout with Adriano Martins and Rustam Khabilov. And yeah, I picked Rustam to win this fight. This is the guy that had a war against Benson Henderson in his last fight and didn't look that bad. I mean, he lost to Benson Henderson, no shame in losing to him. And Adriano, he just, well, I wouldn't have guessed he would have won this fight. And he looked good too. Yeah, he won by decision split. It was definitely a close, hard-fought fight. Good strikes landed on both sides, but Yeah, I would say Adriano, he kept his range, found his distance, and he worked that jab and he worked some good strikes. And it was pretty much a striking clinic with Adriano, and he didn't look that bad. And yeah, there was some grappling involved. Overall, not a bad match. Happy Adriano won. Then also on the main card, we had a middleweight clash with Sam Alvey and Alvey. Smiling Sam Alvey from Season 16 of The Ultimate Fighter versus Cesar Ferreira. And yeah, on paper I would have picked Cesar to win this fight. Paper aside, I would have picked Cesar to win this. I was not picking Sam Alvey to win this fight at all. It's one of those cases where I wanted Sam Alvey to win, but I didn't think he was going to win. But he won, and I'm glad he did. I am a Sam Alvey fan. I'm a fan of pretty much everyone that was on Season 16 of The Ultimate Fighter, because I felt like that season got too much of a bad rap for a number of reasons. And yeah, the fights weren't the most exciting on that season, but it happens sometimes. And you know, I think that season had a lot of talented fighters like Sam Alvey and current UFC welterweight standout Neil Magny. Yeah, Sam Alvey, he definitely wasn't looking too impressive at the beginning of this match. He was finding his pace though eventually, and he did good at dodging some hard shots from Cesar early on in the fight. And it was a quick fight. It ended in the first round. Yeah, Sam Alvey won KO punches round 1. And it was a great, exciting fight. I mean, he was able to catch him by landing the right, a good, clean right, and then boom with the left hook and drop Cesar. Great fight. And then he threw his t-shirt off into the audience. That was a lot of fun. Kind of takes you back to WWE a little bit. Back when some of the stars in WWE would throw their shirts in the crowd. So nice to see Sam Alvey do that. Give back to the fans. Yeah, keep smiling, Sam, if you're watching this. So good job. KO punches round 1 victory for Sam Alvey. Then on to the co-main event. Lightweight bout with Michael Johnson and Edson Barboza. I wanted Edson Barboza to win this. I thought he was going to win this. I knew it was going to be a striking clinic. I thought he would land some heavy leg kicks, slow down Michael Johnson, and then eventually knock him out either with continued leg kicks or slow him down, then knock him out through punches. But Michael Johnson, he used his footwork on this fight. He stayed lateral. He didn't stay in the pocket with Edson Barboza, and it was a smart move, and he landed some good, clean combinations. Michael Johnson, a runner-up of Season 12 of The Ultimate Fighter, which he lost that to Jonathan Brookins, is now looking good in the UFC. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, you look back at that season, and yeah, he's the biggest star of that season since that season wrapped up. Michael Johnson, he really is, yeah, he's in that top 10 of the UFC lightweight division now, and he called out Benson Henderson. I think it would be a good matchup for him, and if he beats Benson Henderson, he's definitely in the title mix. If not, I think Michael Johnson would still be in the top 10 because he just beat the number 6 guy, so he has to be ranked 6, 7, 8 right now in the rankings after beating Edson Barboza with a performance like that. And yeah, it was a striking clinic, and he landed more shots per round and got a clean, unanimous decision victory. It was 30-27 on 2 of the judges and 29-28 on one of them. And yeah, it was an okay fight. I wish there was going to be a knockout, but oh well. You know, they both were going for it. They were both trying, and it's just one of those things. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Then, okay, the big one, literally and figuratively, everything. Frank Mir, Antonio Silva. I wanted Antonio Silva to win this fight so bad, but I called this one perfectly. I picked Frank Mir to win this even though he was the underdog. because of his speed. His speed, and since all that time off, I would imagine he worked on his striking, which he did. And he has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so does Antonio, but I think Frank Mir's jiu-jitsu is a little bit more menacing, and I knew this fight would probably stay in the stand-up because Antonio's not known for, in his last few fights, taking it to the ground. Frank Mir could take it to the ground, but knowing he has a speed advantage over Antonio, why take it to the ground and waste all his time and energy on the ground trying to submit a black belt? Which, yeah, he could do, but it would be much easier to just stand up, create angles, land some good shots, combinations, and knock him out, which he did. So, good job, Frank Mir. And yeah, it was officially KO punches and elbows, round one finish for Frank Mir. So Frank Mir saved his UFC career in this fight, which made it exciting because had he lost, he probably would have retired, left the UFC. If he won this fight, we see him another day. And he wants Brock Lesnar in his next fight. Oh man, I would love to see that. UFC, if you're watching this, I would love to see a season of The Ultimate Fighter where it's Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar as the coaches, and then at the end of the season, we end the trilogy, Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir, and hopefully, as you all know with me, I'm a big Brock Lesnar fan. Brock Lesnar wins that trilogy. Be awesome to see. And be also awesome to see another Team Lesnar victory on The Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, so that wraps up the post-fight show for UFC Fight Night, Frank Mir versus Antonio Silva. Stay tuned for my next episode, which will be about UFC 184, Ronda Rousey versus Kat Zingano. Until then, see ya.